My item can be upgraded. Introduction. Steel Needle Pistol LV1.0/10, effective range of 5 meters, cannot be upgraded, a self-made steel needle pistol with a very small initial power. For each level raised, the effective range increases by 50% from the previous level. After level 10, can the power surpass that of a sniper rifle? What about level 20, or even after level 30? Pull out the crab legs that are caught casually and then install them to generate data. Crab LV1.0/11, regular crab, cannot be upgraded. The transformed crab will automatically gain experience as long as it moves on its own, and its body size will increase by 50% for each level of advancement. After level 10, how big is this crab? How big is it after level 20 and level 30? Chapter 1. Awakening, Steel Needle Pistol. You are listening at novelfull.audio. LV1.0/1, the sudden appearance of data in his mind stunned Sen-shi. He couldn't help but blink his eyes and free up his hand to tap his head, only to find that the data had not disappeared. Watch the road carefully, how did you drive? A beautiful and unscrupulous female passenger's angry voice came from the back seat. The professional ethics of taxi drivers nowadays are so poor. If there is a car accident, can you afford to pay for it? I'm sorry. Sen-shi quickly apologized and didn't dare to be distracted anymore. He drove the car seriously. At the age of 27 this year, he is already a 10-year-old driver. Although it is unlikely that he will make a mistake, it is still better to be careful on the highway. Especially, for some unknown reason, it turned out to be foggy outside with low visibility. This made him subconsciously slow down the speed, feeling inexplicably uneasy in his heart. Because he is very familiar with this section of the highway and never remembers it fogging here. The speed slowed down, and Sen-shi felt a bit bored again. So he focused his extra energy on the two female passengers in the back seat, observing them through the rearview mirror to nourish his eyes. The two female passengers pulled this time are both of excellent physique and appearance. Through the conversation between the two, and one of them occasionally becoming insane, he learned the names of the two female passengers. The female passenger who occasionally goes crazy is named Yang Yue. She has a good appearance and figure, but unfortunately has a mouth. The other female passenger is named Wanyi, gentle and dignified, always with a good temper, giving people a feeling of obedience. Since she mainly looked at Wanyi, of course, he only dared to secretly look. Unfortunately, the other party seems to have been married and may even have children. That mature temperament is not something that women who have never had children can have. I don't know which man has this kind of luck to marry such a woman. He truly envies being an orphan, because of his inner insecurity. Even at the age of 27, he has never had a girlfriend. Even if I see a beautiful girl, I only dare to look at her from a distance and only dare to have a silver heart in my heart. I don't know when I'll be able to find my wife either. Since she let out a sigh in his heart and then drove the car seriously. Although the speed has slowed down, it is still better to be careful as there is thick fog. At this moment, the sound coming from the back seat made him instinctively raise his ears. It's understandable that you don't want child custody, so it's better to remarry in the future, but why don't you even want company shares? That's all you deserve. This is Yang Yue's voice. Immediately after, Wanyi's gentle voice sounded. Sometimes in life, there must be, and when there is no time in life, do not force yourself. You have a character that is independent of the world. You really deserve to compete with that slut. This is Yang Yue's voice roast. Child custody. Sen-shi's heart was moved, that gentle and virtuous woman has already divorced. Well, what does this have to do with oneself? I am just a taxi driver who doesn't even have a fixed residence. He shook his head and stopped thinking about those unrealistic things. Suddenly, unsure if it was an illusion, he felt that the highway in his field of vision was a bit blurry. The already foggy highway has lower visibility. He quickly slowed down the speed again while trying to keep his eyes wide open, fearing a car accident. Roaming. At this moment, there was a loud collision sound in the distance, which startled all three people inside the taxi. Suddenly, Xin-Shi's face changed drastically and he slammed on the brake. Shit! The taxi made an emergency stop. The huge inertia almost caused two unprepared female passengers in the back seat to collide with the front barrier. Fortunately, with the protection of seat belts, both of them were safe and sound. After the taxi came to a complete stop, Xin-Shi looked at the outside environment with a surprised expression on his face, his pupils slightly contracting. The fog outside has dissipated, and what appears in the field of vision are large trees with at least two people embracing each other. And just over 10 meters away, a large truck tilted there and smashed a big tree. The loud noise before should have been made by that car breaking a big tree. When he looked over, the driver inside happened to climb out of the car window. Apart from the big truck, there are other vehicles in the distance. There seemed to be a considerable number of vehicles breaking into this place by chance. And behind it, there were no highways at all, and I didn't know how I and others broke into this place. How did you drive? From the back seat, Yang Yue angrily shouted, if I had any major problems. The next moment, Xin-Shi heard the startled cries of the two women. Obviously, the two female passengers also noticed the situation outside. Roar. Suddenly, the roar of beasts came from afar. The sound, even though far away, had a chilling sensation that made one's hands and feet feel cold. What exactly is this place? Xin-Shi felt a sense of crisis bursting in his heart. He quickly opened the storage box in front of the co-pilot and took out a folding knife from inside just in case. However, folding knives are not safe because in this forest, beasts may only be one of the threats. So he put the folding knife into his pocket and then took out a small box. There are 10 parts in this small box, which are the parts of his handmade steel needle pistol. Because he often runs late at night, he naturally prepares some things just in case. The folding knife is one of them, and this steel needle pistol is also one of them. The appearance of the steel needle pistol is too eye-catching. In order to avoid misunderstandings, he usually disassembles it into parts and puts them away, and only assembles them when needed. A folding knife is a commonly used tool for cutting fruits, which is easy to explain. The ammunition of this steel needle pistol is steel needles, which are spring-powered and have very little power. The effective range is only 5 meters, and the maximum range is only over 10 meters. However, in recent years, he has been practicing accuracy whenever he has nothing to do, so he is almost hitting every shot within 5 meters. Even when encountering fierce beasts, if shot in the eye, it can still cause significant damage. Quickly, he skillfully assembled 10 parts. A pocket pistol with a caliber of only a few millimeters has appeared. At the moment when the last component was installed, suddenly, a data appeared above the steel needle pistol. Steel needle pistol LV1.0 out of 10, effective range of 5 meters, cannot be upgraded. At the same time, the word experience +1 suddenly flashed through my mind. In the next moment, the data in my mind has become LV1.1/1, upgradable, this is. Xin-Shi was suddenly taken aback. Ha! That's Dong Du. Suddenly, Yang Yue's surprised voice came from the back seat, followed by the sound of rolling down the car window. Immediately after, Yang Yue shouted, Du Dong, you're also there. Xin-Shi frowned and turned back. Don't open the windows randomly, be careful not to let poisonous insects crawl in. But Yang Yue turned a deaf ear and continued to wave at the middle-aged man with a bodyguard in the distance. The middle-aged man saw Yang Yue here and quickly walked over with his bodyguard, saying, Mr. Yang. Mr. Gao is also here, do you want to come together? This place is too eerie, we'd better work together to find a way out. He clearly knows the two female passengers of Xin-Shi, and they are very familiar with each other. Okay, Wanyi, let's get off the car. Yang Yue quickly opened the car door and was about to pull Gao Wanyi out of the car. Xin Shi, with professional ethics in mind, kindly reminded me, it's best not to go out recklessly. There might be poisonous insects here. And you haven't paid me for the car yet. Upon hearing these words, Yang Yue suddenly became angry and said, you sent us to such a haunted place, but you still want the fare. Wanyi, let's go. Xin Shi said calmly, although it was my fault to send you here, I have no control over this matter. You can leave, but after you leave, you are no longer my passengers, and I will no longer be responsible for your safety. Who's taking responsibility for you? You're being too passionate. After Yang Yue finished speaking, she wanted to pull Gao Wanyi out of the car. However, Gao Wanyi did not move. She looked seriously at the calm Xin Shi and suddenly asked, I am still your passenger now. Will you protect me? Upon hearing this, Yang Yue and Xin Shi were both stunned. He felt inexplicably delighted at the thought of being alone with this familiar and beautiful young woman. However, Xin Shi didn't dare to show any lewd expression and said, I will do my best, provided that you are my passenger. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Gao Wanyi smiled and said, thank you then. Gao Wanyi, you don't have a fever, do you think he can protect you? Yang Yue said in silence, at least Du Dong brings his bodyguards, and he often exercises. When he encounters danger, he is better able to protect us. Outside, Du Dong also said, Mr. Yang is right. We are at least acquaintances, familiar with each other. Mr. Gao should not trust strangers casually. Xin Shi glanced at the other person but didn't speak. No need, and I'm no longer Mr. Gao. I won't trouble Mr. Du anymore, Gao Wanyi politely declined. Yang Yue couldn't help but mock, Gao Wanyi, you are really ignorant. No wonder your husband doesn't want you. Bang! Suddenly, Xin Shi remotely closed the car door and window, directly locking it to prevent poisonous insects from infiltrating. You! Yang Yue became angry. Du Dong promptly grabbed her and said, since Mr. Gao doesn't want to come with us, let's go find a way out ourselves. Perhaps he is also aware that there is something wrong with the current situation. If he can't get out of here, he won't be the chairman of a big group anymore, so he doesn't want to make enemies casually. Gao Wanyi, you always seem so self-righteous. Trust strangers casually, and I hope you won't regret it then. Yang Yue snorted coldly and turned around to follow Du and Dong away. Xin Shi then said, don't open the window casually. If this place is still Earth, I will take you home. Thank you, Gao Wanyi nodded and fell silent. Xin Shi seized the time to study the upgrade data in his mind. Can it be upgraded? How did it get promoted? He moved his heart and tried to give instructions with his mind. Upgrade. Chapter 2. Upgrade, kill monster birds. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At the moment when my thoughts were completed and instructions were given, the data in my mind suddenly became blurry. At the same time, he suddenly felt a slight, imperceptible heat in his body. This process only lasted for 1 second and ended. Then the data in my mind became clear again, but it had already become LV 2.0.2, but the data of the steel needle pistol in hand has not changed at all. So the data in my mind is my personal level. And then, is the item I assemble a product of abilities? Xin Shi realized in his heart and quickly sensed his own state. But I don't know if it's because the level is too low or for some reason. The previous upgrade seems to have no effect. With the current physical fitness of an ordinary person, once encountering a fierce beast, one is almost certain to die. Let's take a look at the steel needle pistol first. Suddenly arriving in this unfamiliar place, especially with the roar of beasts before, made him feel a sense of crisis. This sense of crisis is not only from the threat of beasts, but also from a lack of food. Although there is some food in the car, it will be eaten up sooner or later. So there must be a weapon that can hunt prey. Moreover, when looking for a way out later on, one will most likely encounter wild beasts and require powerful weapons for self-protection, so one cannot always stay here waiting for rescue. Because Tsinshi feels that there is unlikely to be a rescue team, as this is still not Earth and he doesn't even know. If a steel needle pistol can also be upgraded, it may be able to meet one's own needs. At this point, Tsinshi had roughly guessed how to obtain his personal experience. I don't know how to obtain the items that I have assembled without my own experience. He thought for a moment and then took out a small plastic box from the storage box again. This box contains 100 steel needles that are 2 centimeters long and about the same thickness as toothpicks, which he specially made for the steel needle pistol. And in the storage box, there are more than 10 plastic boxes like this. Tsinshi took out the magazine of the steel needle pistol and then inserted the steel needles one by one. Although the steel needle is small, the clip is also not large, so only 20 can be loaded at a time. Are you a handgun? Gao Wanyi, who was sitting in the back seat, saw this scene and asked in surprise and confusion, how can I put a steel needle inside? This is my self-made steel needle pistol. Tsinshi's face remained unchanged as he answered, as the other party would also notice when using it later. Quickly, the steel needles were full, and he reinstalled the magazine. Homemade. Gao Wanyi suddenly realized, but she suspected in her heart that using steel needles to make bullets could really hurt people. You should know that the reason why normal firearms have such great power is mainly due to the gunpowder propulsion of the bullet itself. My grass. Why is this mosquito so big? Suddenly, a startled cry came from a distance. Get back in the car. The two of them quickly looked outside and indeed saw many mosquitoes the size of fists flying out of the grass. What a big mosquito. Gao Wanyi was surprised. Tsinshi quickly rolled down the car window a little and aimed a steel needle pistol at a rapidly approaching poisonous mosquito. At the moment when the mosquito entered range, he suddenly pulled the trigger. With a thud, the poisonous mosquito was shot through by a steel needle and fell down. This. Gao Wanyi couldn't help but show a surprised expression. That steel needle pistol can actually kill that poisonous mosquito. And Tsinshi's marksmanship also surprised her. Because the speed of that poisonous mosquito is not slow, it can even hit the moving target so accurately. At this moment, Tsinshi suddenly realized that the experience of the steel needle pistol had increased by a point, becoming Steel Needle Pistol LV1.1/10, effective range of 5 meters, cannot be upgraded. As expected, this experience of assembling items requires use to obtain. He realized in his heart and then aimed at another poisonous mosquito again, ready to brush his experience. He actually wants to see what happens after upgrading this item. Puff. Another passing poisonous mosquito was shot through and fell. His marksmanship has been fully honed over the years. As long as it is within range, even if it is a moving target, it can almost hit 100 shots. A passing poisonous mosquito was shot and killed, and the experience of a steel needle pistol was rapidly increasing. No matter how fast those poisonous mosquitoes fly, as long as they enter range, they will be shot and killed with a single blow. Gao Wanyi in the back seat looked strangely at Tsinshi, who was constantly shooting mosquitoes to kill viruses. Ah! Suddenly, a scream came from afar. What kind of bird is this? Run quickly. A frightened voice came from afar. Their faces changed slightly, and they quickly followed the sound, only to see a few strange birds the size of slaps flash away. Bang! Suddenly, something hit the left car window. Tsinshi suddenly turned around and saw a monster bird the size of a palm flapping its wings and flying away. And at the location of the impact, there were actually fine cracks. At the center of the crack, there is a small pit that almost penetrates the car window glass. My car. His face changed slightly. He, who was used to being thrifty, felt heartbroken when he saw the broken window. Although I feel that this car may not be able to drive back, I still feel heartbroken. It's here again. Suddenly, Wanyi exclaimed nervously. I saw the strange bird fly out a few tens of meters and then turn around and shoot towards us again. Seeking death. She felt angry in his heart and quickly raised his steel needle pistol to aim at the strange bird. At the moment when the strange bird entered range, he suddenly pulled the trigger. With a hiss, the steel needle struggled to pierce into the corner of the bird's eye. Gio. The strange bird felt pain and quickly turned direction and flew away. Wanyi breathed a sigh of relief because the bird was clearly strange. If the other party entered the car, they would be in danger. She quickly looked at the experience of the steel needle pistol and found that the experience was just full. After upgrading the data, the original words, not upgradable, have been changed to upgradable. Finally, I can upgrade. I hope the effect after upgrading won't disappoint me. He chose to upgrade without hesitation. I saw the exclusive data of the steel needle pistol blur down, and then a faint light lit up. This process only lasted for 1 second before ending, and the data from zhaosuiyuan.com reappeared. Then the exclusive data for the steel needle pistol became Steel needle pistol LV2.0/20, effective range of 7 meters, cannot be upgraded, has the effective range increased by 2 meters. She was delighted because an increase in range was equivalent to an increase in power. Although the effective range is only 7 meters, the maximum range may exceed 20 meters. Also, it should be noted that the ammunition of this steel needle pistol is a sharp steel needle, and the piercing damage from the needle tip can be significant. The increase in effective range of 2 meters definitely results in a much greater total power than before. It's here again. Suddenly, Wanyi exclaimed nervously. She quickly looked up and saw that the previous bird had flown in from a distance again, and this time it had directly locked onto him, obviously taking revenge. He quickly raised the steel needle pistol again and carefully aimed it. Just as the strange bird entered range, he suddenly pulled the trigger. Shit. Gio. The strange bird let out a scream, its eyes pierced by steel needles, and then collided with the car window glass under inertia. But in this way, the impact force is greatly reduced and no more damage is caused to the car window glass. Seeing the strange bird sliding down, she suddenly pushed open the car door, took out the folding knife from his pocket, and pressed a button. Gio. Sensing his approach, the strange bird became anxious and quickly flapped its wings to fly away. However, as soon as the folding knife popped out, she suddenly stabbed it. The strange bird preparing to take off was stabbed directly by a knife and died in despair. Dare to smash my car. She snorted coldly and didn't dare to stay outside any longer. He quickly returned to the car with a folding knife wearing a strange bird corpse, quickly closed the car door and locked it. Chapter 3. Source of initial experience. You are listening at novelfull.audio. How could you really use that gun to kill this strange bird? Wanyi looked surprised. The steel needle pistol failed to kill directly. She said while observing the body of the strange bird. This is a strange bird that looks very much like a hummingbird, but is much larger than a hummingbird. On one of the strange bird's eyes, a steel needle was prominently inserted. But the steel needle only inserted into the eyeball of the monster bird's eye, clearly not hurting the other person's head. Obviously, the current power of steel needle pistols is still not strong enough to kill such small birds in one shot. Do you know this kind of bird? She retrieved the steel needle and then lifted the bird corpse worn by the folding knife for Wanyi to see clearly. Wanyi leaned forward slightly with a delicate body and said in surprise, I once saw a record of this bird in an essay. This bird seems to be the most common charging bird in the classic of mountains and seas. The classic of mountains and rivers. She questioned, can this bird also enter the Shanhai Jing? Although the car charging bird is somewhat powerful. At least it is much more powerful than the vast majority of birds of the same size. You should know that under normal circumstances, at such a fast speed, if you hit a crack on the car window glass, a bird of the same volume would definitely be shattered to pieces. But this charging bird surprisingly survived unscathed, and it seems to be able to make such charging impacts multiple times. However, this level of power is still within an acceptable range, and it feels like it doesn't match the monsters in the classic of mountains and seas. Of course not, the book I read was a miscellaneous record, it just means that this kind of stormtrooper lived in that era. Wanyi explained, stormtroopers are birds that rely on charging to attack enemies and do not have any special abilities. After a pause, she suddenly exclaimed in disbelief, "Why does this creature, which only exists in ancient mythological miscellaneous records, appear here? Perhaps this is no longer Earth." Since she took out his phone and glanced at it, only to find that there was no signal at all. With a sigh, he suddenly asked, "Can this bird eat?" "It should be possible." Wanyi also looked at her phone and saw that there was indeed no signal. She said with a mixed heart, "I have read records that this bird is the food of many large birds, and its meat should not be poisonous." "That's good, let's eat this bird today." Since she said, suddenly taking out a small charging electric cooker from under the passenger seat and saying, "Will it?" "Yes, I do, but this bird is so small, is it enough to eat?" Wanyi took over the electric cooker. Since she immediately took out salt and mineral water again. As a taxi driver who often travels long distances, these things must be prepared. "I'll kill more later, that's enough," he said, taking out the magazine of the steel needle pistol, and then filling it up, ready to continue brushing the experience. Since there are strange birds like stormtroopers in this forest, it is very likely that there will also be other monsters. So the upgrade of the steel needle pistol is urgent. Outside, besides poisonous mosquitoes, there are also many other poisonous insects. Since she then practiced with those poisonous insects. Puff. A passing moth the size of a palm was pierced by a fleeting steel needle and fell to the ground. Puff. An unrecognizable little bug had just fallen from the tree when it was pierced by a steel needle and fell into the grass in a small arc. It has to be said that hitting such a living creature is much more interesting than killing a target. Especially, as his experience with the steel needle pistol gradually increased, since she felt full of motivation and didn't feel bored at all. In just half a minute, 20 more insect corpses appeared outside. It can be seen from this that there are really many poisonous insects in this forest, and there are dangers everywhere. It is best not to get off the car until you are prepared. Otherwise, not to mention finding a way out, whether one can survive or not is unknown. Steel needle pistol LV 2.20/20, effective range of 7 meters, cannot be upgraded, cannot be upgraded. Why at this point, the experience is already full, but it still cannot be upgraded. Since she couldn't help but think of his personal level. My personal level happens to be level 2, does my level limit determine the level limit of an item? The rule of servant not suppressing the master. Then continue to refresh your experience and upgrade together later. Since she thought this way and started brushing his experience again. However, when he once again shot a steel needle and killed a small insect lying on a tree trunk 5 meters away, he was puzzled to find that he had no experience to take in the money. After reaching full experience, one cannot continue to accumulate. He frowned slightly and said, "In that case, we must first elevate our personal level." Thinking of this, he immediately took the folding knife hanging on the isolation fence and found a screwdriver under the seat to open it. But to avoid trouble, he didn't completely dismantle it, only dismantled the main module and started assembling directly. As a result, no upgrade data was generated when assembled in this way. Is it my guess wrong, or do I have to assemble all the parts myself? Since she frowned slightly and then removed the folding knife again, this time very thoroughly. He dismantled both the screws and the springs. In the end, a total of 13 parts were dismantled. He only started assembling again after confirming that there were no other parts left. Finally, this time, when he reassembled the folding knife, the upgrade data unique to the folding knife appeared. Folding knife LV1.0/13, non-upgradable. At the same time, the word experience +1 flashed through my mind, and my personal experience increased a bit. It seems that I really need to assemble all the parts myself in order to generate data. She understood in his heart and then looked at the experience of the folding knife. The initial experience is 13 points. Is it a coincidence he suddenly thought that the steel needle pistol also had exactly 10 parts, and the initial experience was 10 points? Does the number of components that make up an item determine the initial experience? If that's the case, items that are too precise will not be suitable for one's abilities. For example, using a mobile phone, looking for a book garden at www.zhaozuiyuan.com, such as a car. Even if these things really give birth to upgraded data, the experience may only be astronomical and cannot be upgraded at all. Give me the knife, I'll dissect the charging bird, said Gao Wanyi in the back seat. Good. Shi's heart twitched as she happened to see if Gao Wanyi could gain experience using her own assembled items. By the way, I don't know your name yet, Gao Wanyi took the folding knife and said. Just call me Shi. The mountain is Nautsen, the hope is high, Shi said. Gao Wanyi smiled and nodded. My name is Gao Wanyi. I should be older than you. You can call me by my name directly, or call me Wanyi sister. I'm 27 years old, Shi said, as if trying to prove that he's not young anymore. I'm already 30, Gao Wanyi smiled gently, not as age-sensitive as other women. Okay, it's indeed bigger than myself. Shi didn't speak anymore, but continued to search for things that could be disassembled and assembled in the storage box. Now that danger is rampant outside, we need to first improve our own strength. Quickly, he found a wooden walnut to play with. This wooden walnut is real wood, spherical in shape, consisting of 6 parts in total, and the outer wall is carved very much like a walnut. Shi dismantled and reassembled it, and indeed, upgraded data was born again. Playing with wooden walnuts LV1.0/6, not upgradable, the word experience +1 flashed through my mind again. And Shi also determined that the number of components that make up the item is the initial experience. My personal experience is already sufficient and I can upgrade again, then upgrade. He had a sudden thought and immediately upgraded himself. Chapter 4. Fragrant boiled bird meat. You are listening at novel.Audio. The data in my mind blurs down, and as before, my body feels a slight heat that cannot be detected. Just 1 second later, the upgrade ended and the new data became LV 3.0/4. Surprisingly, the experience has doubled. Shi frowned slightly and then sensed his own state, only to find that his physique and strength remained unchanged. Or rather, the only change seems to be a slight improvement in spirits. It seems that we can no longer hope for close combat capabilities against enemy forces, at least not in the early stages. Without wasting time, he quickly picked up the steel needle and pistol to check. Sure enough, the word non-upgradable on the back of the steel needle pistol has changed to upgradable. So he started upgrading directly. About 2 seconds later, the upgrade will end. There is no change in the surface of the steel needle pistol, only a slight increase in weight, perhaps due to the strengthened material. And the data becomes steel needle pistol LV 3.0/40, effective range of 10 meters, cannot be upgraded. The third level steel needle pistol has an effective range increased by 3 meters, reaching 10 meters. An effective range of 10 meters, according to a ratio of 3 to 4 times the effective range to the maximum range is at least over 30 meters, close to 40 meters. This range should be quite powerful. At least if it hits the target, it should be able to directly kill the stormtrooper. However, seeing the experience required for upgrading, Shi frowned again and said, the required experience has indeed doubled. If it doubles every time, will the experience required for upgrading later become astronomical? Shouldn't it be? Otherwise, it would be a bit unreasonable, but it will only be known then. With these thoughts in mind, Xin once again filled the magazine of the steel needle pistol. Bang! Suddenly, there was a collision sound from behind the taxi. The two of them quickly turned around and saw a charging bird flying away quickly, with fine cracks appearing at the location where it was hit. It's a charging bird again. Is this bird sick? Xin quickly glanced outside and confirmed that there was no danger, so he opened the car door and got off. He looked at the rapidly flying charging bird, raised a steel needle pistol, and waited. Sure enough, the charging bird turned around 30 meters away and immediately locked onto him, flapping its wings and shooting fiercely, as if preparing to kill him. Xin squinted his eyes and patiently waited, pulling the trigger as soon as the charging bird entered range. Puff! The fleeting steel needle pierced directly through the charging bird's head. This charging bird didn't even have a chance to scream before it died. It fell to the ground and struggled a few times before losing all movement. Sure enough, today's steel needle pistols can already kill this small bird. Xin walked over quickly, picked up the body of the charging bird, and quickly returned to the car. He pulled out the steel needle from the head of the storming bird to retrieve it, and then handed the body of the storming bird to Wanyi in the back seat, saying, "Add a meal." Well, good. Wanyi received the body of the storming bird with a strange look in her eyes, because she had seen it with her own eyes this time, and the storming bird had been shot to death. Previously, Xin's steel needle pistol could not kill such a small bird with just one shot. However, the clever woman didn't ask any questions and continued to dissect the body of this storming bird. Try to save water as much as possible. Xin said, "By the way, I'll go check if there's anything to eat in other cars. Don't get off here casually." After speaking, he opened the car door again. However, after thinking for a moment, he suddenly found a pair of gloves under his seat and put them on. He got out of the car, closed the car door and windows, and then began to retrieve the steel needles that had previously been used to kill the virus. He recycled everything he could find. Because the steel needles he carries are limited, they will be gone once used up, and he must save them. He collected all the steel needles he could find nearby and shot some nearby poisonous insects again before quickly walking towards the large truck more than 10 meters away. The driver of this large truck seems to have left with Yang Yue and the others, leaving the car here. Xin did not approach rashly to avoid any danger for Dong Xi to enter. He walked around the big truck and shot some venomous insects that he knew were immediately poisonous, while also brushing his experience. He collected any poisonous insects he killed as long as the steel needle was still there. However, he was also careful when recycling to prevent the ship from capsizing in the sewer, as these poisonous insects are highly toxic. Due to the vehicle overturning, a lot of goods were dumped out by the large truck, but unfortunately, the goods were just sand and of no use. After confirming that there was no danger, he climbed into the driver's seat. The driver of the big truck has already taken away the key, and other useful things should also be taken away. Xin, who thought he had not gained much, suddenly saw a palm-sized wooden storage box in front of the steering wheel. He quickly picked it up and found that there were only a few 1 yuan coins in the storage box. A 1 yuan coin is not very useful, but this storage box seems to have a mortise and tenon structure, which can be used for disassembly and assembly to gain personal experience. After confirming again that there was nothing useful, he climbed out of the driver's seat. Ah! Suddenly, a mournful scream came from afar, causing his face to slightly change. He, who originally wanted to search for supplies in other cars, immediately dispelled this idea. It's better to upgrade the level of the steel needle pistol first. I didn't know how many cars had broken into this forest before, but even at the location of his taxi, he could see 3 or 4 cars. Those cars should have arrived earlier than them, and the people inside don't know where they have gone. There should be someone even further away, and it's unknown how many people have broken into this forest. Is there a dead person? When Xin-Shi returned to his taxi, Gao Wanyi, who was cooking bird meat, nervously asked. While speaking, Gao Wanyi handed the bird's organs and feathers to Xin-Shi and said, "Throw it away." "I don't know, maybe it is." Xin-Shi took the feathers and organs, threw them hard into the distance, and then locked the car doors and windows. Get personal experience first. The screams from afar constantly remind him that it is very dangerous outside and that he must improve his self-protection ability as soon as possible. He took out the storage box he had found before, and after some exploration, he opened it and reassembled it. This storage box has a total of 10 parts, and after assembling and generating experience, the initial experience is indeed 10 points. Experience +1. My personal experience has increased a bit. Xin-Shi smiled, not in a hurry to study the way to obtain experience from the storage box, but continued to search for other things to brush up on his personal experience. Only when the personal level is elevated can the items assembled by oneself continue to be upgraded. The most important thing now is to upgrade the level of the steel needle pistol. Unfortunately, there are not many things in the car that are easy to disassemble and have a small number of parts. So he got off the car again and pulled some grass nearby to get back into the car. Lock the car door and look for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. He picked up 3 pieces of grass and folded them. A few minutes later, a somewhat rough grasshopper appeared. Experience +1. Sure enough, this type of non-disassembled and reassembled item can also generate upgrade data and gain personal experience. Xin-Shi felt secretly pleased and casually put the grasshopper into his pocket to study when he had time. Then he picked up 3 more pieces of grass and continued to fold the grasshopper. About 5 minutes later, 2 grasshoppers were freshly cooked, and 2 more personal experiences were gained. Seeing his personal experience full, he did not hesitate to choose to upgrade. More heat appears in the body than in the previous 2 upgrades. 2 seconds later, his level reached level 4. LV 4.0/8, my personal level has finally reached level 4. Xin-Shi showed a faint smile and sensed his body again. He found that his physical strength had not significantly improved, but his spirit had noticeably improved. You can eat now, by the way, should we turn on the air conditioning to extract the steam? Suddenly, Gao Wanyi said. So fast. Xin-Shi immediately collected the draft grasshopper, casually turned on the car air conditioning, and then took out 2 pairs of disposable chopsticks. There are no bowls, just make do with it. I'm not that delicate. Gao Wanyi smiled and took the chopsticks, and the 2 of them ate bird meat from the electric cooker through the isolation fence. Both of them happened to be a bit hungry. Not to mention, although there is no seasoning and only salt, this bird meat is actually quite delicious. I don't know if it's due to Gao Wanyi's craftsmanship, or if the meat of the stormtroop is already so delicious. In this perilous primitive forest, eating boiled bird meat with salt is truly a unique experience. Chapter 5. Encountering wild men, upgrading to counter-kill. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ah! Suddenly, another mournful scream came from afar. Both of them had a change in expression. It's not right, eat quickly. The screams are too frequent, and I have an ominous feeling. Xin-Shi suddenly quickened his pace. Even if you have to leave, you have to fill your stomach. And now we don't know what the danger comes from, blindly escaping may lead to even more dangerous situations. Gao Wanyi also realized the seriousness of the situation and immediately accelerated her eating speed. Quickly, they ate up all the bird meat, but couldn't even count it as half full. Drink the soup too, you'll have half of it, Xin-Shi said. Gao Wanyi endured the heat, picked up the electric cooker, drank half of the soup, and then handed it to Xin-Shi. Xin-Shi took the electric cooker and poured it directly into his mouth. After the soup inside was consumed, he finally felt a bit full. Ah! Suddenly, there was another scream, and this time it was only about 200 meters behind. Xin-Shi's face changed slightly and he quickly looked back through the rearview mirror, but he didn't see anything. "Take your things with you," he said, quickly finding a backpack and putting everything that could be used inside. Because he doesn't have a house, let alone a rental apartment, and often travels long distances after buying a car, he almost always lives in the car, so it's not surprising to have a backpack on the car. He first packed a dozen plastic small boxes containing steel needles, followed by 5 bottles of mineral water. He also packed the wooden storage box he found earlier. "Someone," suddenly Wanyi called out. Xin-Shi looked up and saw a frightened person running from behind. The person quickly crossed the taxi and saw them inside, with a hopeful expression on their face, but strangely did not seek help. The 2 people in the taxi were puzzled when suddenly a wooden spear shot from behind. Puff. Ah! The person was instantly pierced by a spear in the back and chest, nailed to the ground, and let out the same mournful scream as before. The 2 people in the taxi had completely changed their faces. Doubting who threw the spear, suddenly a man with bare arms, wrapped in animal skin, brown-black skin, and messy hair entered their sight. Wild man. Grass. The 2 people in the taxi both changed their faces once again. Xin-Shi quickly opened the car door and picked up a steel needle pistol. The wild man heard the commotion and suddenly turned his head, looking at him with a fierce beastly gaze. Puff. Just as the wild man turned his head, a fleeting steel needle shot directly into his eyes. However, the wild man didn't snort and instinctively covered the injured eye with one hand, while shooting towards him with a fierce arrow step. Ah! Wanyi exclaimed in surprise. Xin-Shi quickly pulled the trigger again. Puff. The fleeting steel needle accurately shot into the other eye of the wild man. What shocked the 2 was that the savage remained silent and continued to fight fiercely, perhaps knowing that he could never retreat at such times. Xin-Shi also knew there was no way out, so he had no intention of retreating. He aimed at the opponent's eyebrows and pulled the trigger. Shit! However, the fleeting steel needle only pierced a small amount, unable to penetrate the brow bone. At this moment, the wild man who was blind in both eyes had rushed out of the car window, roaring like a wild beast in his mouth, and suddenly punched him. Xin-Shi hurriedly closed the door. Bang! The driver's door was directly smashed. Ah! Wanyi exclaimed in surprise. The wild man suddenly turned his head to look towards her, and she quickly crawled towards the other side of the car door to stay away from each other. Xin-Shi, who retreated to the co-pilot, quickly aimed at the savage's throat and pulled the trigger. Puff. The wild man's body was pounded, and his throat was obviously not as hard as before, being shot 1 centimeter into by a steel needle. Taking advantage of the moment when the other party paused, Xin-Shi took the opportunity to shoot a steel needle again. However, this time, although the steel needle still shot into the savage's throat, almost halfway through, the opponent suddenly erupted and launched a reckless attack on the driver's seat. Obviously, he was blind and lacked the ability to distinguish between sound and position, especially the buzzing of the car air conditioning, which caught his attention. So much so that his attacks almost all fell towards the location of the car air conditioning. Perhaps due to his large physique and unfamiliarity with the interior structure, as well as his nearly 2-meter height and robust physique, he was unable to penetrate and could only attack from the doorway. Bang bang bang. The driver's seat was repeatedly damaged, and soon the steering wheel was smashed and even the seat was deformed. Such terrifying attack power shocked both Xin-Shi and Wanyi. Suddenly, out of the corner of Xin-Shi's eye, he saw that his experience with the steel needle pistol was full. Suddenly, he felt a sense of joy in his heart, and without hesitation, he chose to upgrade and opened the passenger door to get off the car. Wanyi also hurriedly grabbed the electric cooker used for self-defense and got off the car from the other side door, following Xin-Shi to quickly retreat. Bang bang bang. Wow! The wild man became even crazier when he heard the commotion, his whole body squeezing into the driver's seat. The sandbag-sized fist caused the car air conditioning to be scrapped and the storage box to deform and break. At this point, the steel needle pistol has been successfully upgraded. Bang bang. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the passenger door was smashed by a wild man's punch. Senshi quickly aimed at the opponent's lower abdomen and suddenly pulled the trigger. Puff. The more powerful steel needle flashed away, piercing through the half-shed animal skin and shooting into the opponent's genitals. Ah! The wild man finally couldn't help but let out a scream, and then went even crazier, his sturdy body about to squeeze out of the carriage. Senshi quickly aimed at the enemy's vital points with a cold face and fired shots one after another. Puff. A steel needle instantly shot into the wild man's elbow joint, causing his hand to tear open the car door. Puff. Immediately after, he was also shot in the joint of his other hand. Poo-poo-poo-poo. Senshi fired shots one after another, and steel needles shot into the savage's eyebrows, eyes, chest, and so on. However, to his surprise, these steel needles were blocked by the muscles or bones of the savages. The fourth-level steel needle pistol, although its power has increased significantly, is still not enough. In the end, he simply shot all the remaining steel needles into the wild man's neck. Finally, the wild man who struggled to squeeze out of the carriage completely lost his strength and fell weakly to the ground. Senshi quickly retreated while taking out the steel needle and filling the magazine of the steel needle pistol at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. When the magazine was full, he went straight to the other side and fired a shot at the back of the wild man's head. With a thud, the steel needle instantly shot into the flesh-free area behind the wild man's head, causing his body to tremble violently. Senshi fired consecutive shots, each aimed directly at the vital point. Finally, after the magazine was once again depleted, the wild man was completely silent. Damn it, it's really hard to kill. He breathed a sigh of relief. The power of current steel needle pistols is still insufficient. At least facing such rough and fleshy savages is not enough. We need to continue working hard to upgrade. Fill the steel needle pistol with steel needles again, since she put away the steel needle pistol and came to the body nailed to the ground. Suppressing the discomfort, he stepped on the corpse, grabbed the wooden spear, and suddenly pulled it out before walking towards the corpse of the wild man. Be careful of him pretending to be dead, Wanyi nervously reminded as she carried the electric cooker. I know. Senshi arrived 3 meters away and suddenly shot the wooden spear as a javelin. With a thud, the sharp wooden spear plunged at least 10 centimeters into the back of the savage's heart. Ah! The wild man, who was originally motionless, couldn't help but scream, but he no longer had the strength to resist. Senshi took out his steel needle pistol again, feeling uneasy, and disabled the wild man's hands and feet. He then leaned in and grabbed the wooden spear, fiercely stabbing into the wild man's body. Finally, the wooden spear struggled to penetrate the wild man's heart, causing it to lose its vitality. Finally dead. Senshi wiped the sweat off his face, feeling secretly grateful in his heart. If it weren't for a steel needle pistol, 10 of them wouldn't be able to fight this kind of experienced and rough savage. Chapter 6. Spoils of War, Leave. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Are we leaving? The taxi is all broken, Wanyi asked with a pale face. Taxis must not be able to stay any longer. There are no car doors, and it is definitely not safe at night. Any poisonous insect here may take our lives. But if we leave, we don't know where it is safer. If we encounter wild people on the way, it will be troublesome. Senshi hesitated a bit. It was already dark now, and leaving the car recklessly would only be more dangerous. Suddenly, a loud noise came from afar. Both of them had a slight change in expression, thinking that another wild man had arrived. When they looked back, they were surprised to find that the group of people were all wearing modern clothing, except that the clothes were a bit dirty. From the perspective of skin and short hair, it is unlikely that they are wild people, especially those who are wearing glasses. That's a team of over 30 people, but it doesn't seem like a whole. Because they walk together in groups of 3 or 5, guarding each other while rushing along. The group of people didn't greet or approach them when they saw them here, but hurriedly continued their journey. Xin-Shi's heart immediately moved and he said, "It should be the person who came here unexpectedly with us. Let's follow up." Okay, Gao Wanyi naturally wouldn't have any objections. Xin-Shi hurriedly entered the passenger door of the taxi and packed all the snacks and other miscellaneous items in the storage box into his backpack. Anything that could be taken away, whether useful or not, he packed it into his backpack. Afterwards, he put Gao Wanyi away from the folding knife in the back seat before getting off the car. Just as he was about to catch up with the group of people with Gao Wanyi, he suddenly saw a sharp tooth hanging beside the head of a wild man lying on the ground. The dental pendant gave off a jade-like feeling, as it was worn by savages with some kind of rope and hung around their necks. It should be a good thing to carry around this powerful savage, isn't it? He moved his heart and cautiously approached, using a folding knife to cut the rope and pick up the tooth. Putting away his tooth, he pulled out his wooden spear and handed it to Gao Wanyi. "Take this self-defense, let's catch up quickly." Being able to be used as a weapon by savages, this wooden spear is obviously of good quality. Good Gao Wanyi endured discomfort and took the wooden spear. Xin-Shi stuffed the electric cooker in Gao Wanyi's hand into his backpack and quickly chased the group ahead with Gao Wanyi. As he walked, he looked at the data of the steel needle pistol. Steel needle pistol LV 4.23/80, effective range of 15 meters, cannot be upgraded. The steel needle pistol that reaches level 4 has a direct increase of 5 meters in effective range. The total effective range is 15 meters, and the maximum range is at least 40.5 meters. This power should already be able to kill ordinary people, if it hits the vital point. However, compared to the wild people before, it still feels a bit inadequate. The kind of wild man who fights with beasts year-round not only has rough skin and thick flesh, but also amazing willpower. Even if there is still one last breath, one can still get up and cannot be taken for granted. The appearance of the level 4 steel needle pistol has finally undergone some changes. This change is that the edge of the barrel has changed slightly, which is almost imperceptible if not noticed, and the gun body has become more refined. But that's all, the change is not significant. Previously, my accuracy was all within 5 meters, but now with this range, perhaps I need to improve my accuracy again. Xin-Shi thought to himself and then raised his steel needle pistol to aim at a tree more than 10 meters away, pulling the trigger. Puff! The speed of the steel needle was so fast that it was almost impossible to see clearly, and it instantly shot into the trunk of the tree. However, there was a difference of about 5 centimeters between the location where the steel needle hit and the location where he aimed. Sure enough, the accuracy needs to be practiced again, but fortunately the error is not too big, and it should be able to be adjusted quickly. Xin-Shi immediately rushed on the road, practicing his guns and gaining experience. Anyway, if someone is leading the way, they just need to follow each other's footsteps and nothing will happen. Because marksmanship has been practiced for a long time, now I am only familiar with a longer range. So it didn't take long for Xin-Shi's marksmanship to improve significantly. After walking for more than 10 minutes, suddenly, it's a charging bird, be careful. There were screams and noises coming from ahead, as if someone had been injured. Xin-Shi and Gao Wanyi both tightened their hearts, and then they saw them running back in fear. At this moment, Xin-Shi's sharp eyes noticed that 3 assault birds were shooting at the 2 people like arrows. Although the 2 of them couldn't see the stormtroop, they could feel the rapidly approaching stormtroop, and their faces changed greatly. Since everyone was ready to follow the other party, Xin-Shi did not turn a blind eye and immediately raised his steel needle pistol, aiming at one of them and pulling the trigger. With a splash, the charging bird was shot through its head and fell to the ground from about 10 meters away. But in such a short amount of time, he can only shoot down one stormtrooper. Ah! My grass! At the same time, the two people were hit by a charging bird on the back of their heads and screamed in agony. Before the two charging birds could recoil and gather their strength, Xin-Shi quickly fired again. Puff! Puff! Those two stormtroopers also followed the footsteps of the first stormtrooper. However, because the distance was a bit too far, the steel needle did not hit their heads, but instead pierced their bodies. But there was not much difference in the outcome. After struggling a few times on the ground, the two charging birds remained motionless. Me grass, a pistol. Are you a police officer? The two people across from saw Xin-Shi's steel needle pistol and immediately showed a look of surprise. I'm not a police officer, Xin-Shi denied. Not a police officer. Those two people's faces slightly changed. Anyway, thank you for saving us. The two of them said thank you, but showed a wary expression and quickly left. Xin-Shi didn't care either. Wanyi hurriedly walked over and picked up the bodies of the three charging birds on the ground. She said happily, the food for tomorrow morning is ready. Xin-Shi smiled slightly and put the body of the stormtrooper into his backpack. At this moment, the group of people ahead unexpectedly solved the stormtrooper, and then a young man quickly ran towards them. Xin-Shi and Wanyi both stopped. Is that a police comrade across from you? The young man asked eagerly. Xin-Shi did not intend to impersonate the sacred profession of police, and he did not deserve it. So he shook his head and went to the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com to deny it again. No. Is there anything you need? That's a pity, but it's okay. The young man said, my name is Chang Feng and I come from a gathering place by the river nearby. When did you come to this world? Did you have a place to live? By the way, what do you two call each other? My name is Xin-Shi, and her name is Wanyi. Xin-Shi couldn't help but ask, aren't you here today? Wanyi couldn't help but show a look of surprise. Of course not, we came a month ago. Chang Feng said, we are the earliest group to arrive, at least in this forest, we should be the earliest group. We don't know about other places. It seems that you only arrived today. How about coming to the gathering place by the river? Did you come a month ago? Xin-Shi and Wanyi exchanged a glance, both unable to help but show a look of surprise. May I ask, where did you enter this world? Asked Wanyi. Others don't know, but I encountered heavy fog while traveling in the South China Sea and suddenly came here. Chang Feng said, as far as I know, people from all over the world have been lost in the fog during this period, and we are not alone when we enter here. Xin-Shi and Wanyi couldn't help but be surprised. So it's not just that highway that can lead to this world, but all over the world. I don't know what exactly caused it. Do you know how to go back? Xin-Shi asked. Unfortunately, I don't know. Chang Feng said regretfully, we also thought about getting out of this forest, but the edge of this forest is blocked by a primitive tribe. I only know that outside the forest is a grassland. Chapter 7. Riverside Gathering Areas. You are listening at level.Audio. The primitive tribe. The place where those savages are located. Xin-Shi asked. Yes, it seems that you have already met those people from primitive society. Chang Feng said, those people are very cruel, we'd better unite. There are already hundreds of people in the gathering place by the river, and we modern people are not easy to bully, and those primitive people dare not easily invade. Xin-Shi nodded and asked again, what do I need to do to join the Riverside gathering place? No need, because we are just united in taking what we need, because no one is convinced and there is no unified will. As long as we don't cause trouble, we should resist together when encountering external enemies. Chang Feng said, it's already dark from the sky. The night in this world is even more dangerous. Let's hurry back. Because I heard that Xin-Shi not only had a handgun, but also shot and killed a fast-moving assault bird from a distance of more than 10 meters. So he really wants to invite Xin to join the Riverside camp. If strong individuals with such strength join the Riverside camp, they will definitely be safer. Could you please lead the way? Xin made a decision immediately and didn't know where to settle. Two of you come with me. Chang Feng's face lit up with joy and he hurriedly led the way ahead. Xin and Gao Wanyi quickly followed suit. The more than 30 people in front did not wait for them and had already left. However, Chang Feng also knows the way, so there's no need to worry about anything else. We have already killed all the wild beasts around here, and even the powerful beasts dare not approach. The only things to be careful of are poisonous insects and charging birds. By the way, they are the kind of birds we just saw. As Chang Feng led the way, he said, based on our exploration during this period, this world seems to be quite primitive. At least the human society here is still in the hunting period of primitive society, and has not even entered the agricultural society. At least the nearby tribe has not entered the agricultural society yet. So primitive. Xin and Gao Wanyi both showed signs of surprise. Yes, quite primitive. Chang Feng then said, but don't underestimate this world, because this world has supernatural powers. Supernatural powers. Xin and Gao Wanyi looked at each other in surprise. Xin thought of his ability to upgrade items, which should also be considered a supernatural power, right? Yes, supernatural powers. Chang Feng said with a solemn expression, let's talk about the primitive tribe nearby. They seem to worship a totem, which has special abilities. As long as we get closer, we will be discovered in advance. Is it possible that someone was on guard and discovered you? Gao Wanyi asked. I'm not sure about this, but one thing, I'm quite sure. Chang Feng said, an old man from that tribe can control flames without any tools. He can summon and control flames out of thin air, which is more magical than magic and has a great killing power. Control flames. That must be a supernatural force. Even Xin expression became solemn. He felt fortunate in his heart that the wild man had no such means before, otherwise it would have been dangerous. After all, my current rank is too low and I can only deal with ordinary enemies. By the way, in this forest, be careful of slimes. Some slimes will disguise themselves as plants and launch surprise attacks from behind. Chang Feng told the two of them some precautions. In this world with supernatural powers, no matter how careful you are, you can't be too careful. Xin and Gao Wanyi carefully noted down that these are survival skills. The nearby tribe, we call it the fire tribe. Chang Feng said, totems seem to have the ability to drive away powerful creatures. Beasts dare not approach the fire tribe within 10 kilometers. Our gathering place by the river is exactly 10 kilometers away from the fire tribe. Xin suddenly realized that no wonder there were no fierce beasts here. The animal roar they heard before also came from faraway places. As they moved forward, Xin and Gao Wanyi both noticed that the trees around them were getting bigger and bigger. After moving forward for over 2,000 meters, giant trees with a diameter of 2 to 3 meters can be seen everywhere around. Occasionally, you can even see ancient trees with a diameter of 4 or 5 meters. After reaching this point, the tree has a huge crown and lush branches and leaves. Perhaps due to a lack of light, there are very few weeds under the tree. There is only a thick layer of decaying leaves under my feet. Below this layer of decaying leaves, traps and poisonous insects can easily appear. However, it is evident that people from riverside gathering places often walk here, and a safe passage has been dug out. Finally, before it was completely dark, the three of them arrived at the riverside camp. From afar, Xin could hear the sound of water and also see piles of bonfires ahead. There is a river several hundred meters wide ahead, but now it seems to be the dry season, and in areas with water, it is only over 10 meters wide. At this moment, Chang Feng spoke again, those bonfires are used to drive away wild animals. Every night, we light bonfires, and there are dedicated people taking turns guarding the night. You're new here. You don't need to stay up late for the first few days, but you also need to take turns guarding later. This can be considered the only obligation that needs to be fulfilled to join the gathering place, but the night watch is for men, and women don't have to. Also, this place is very close to the river, but do not approach the river without permission, because you have no idea what is at the bottom of the water. When we first came here, it was because of carelessness that many people were dragged down by underwater monsters. If you are unable to fetch water, you can exchange other supplies with people. Chang Feng said in surprise, it seems that many new people have arrived today. Near the campfire over there were many people who were either surprised or frightened, obviously just arrived. Because those who came before have already adapted, or rather become numb. Even if someone saw Gao Wanyi, a mature and beautiful woman, their eyes lit up and they didn't come to chat up. Perhaps it was because of the pursuit of survival that they had already exhausted all their energy. Even those people did not come to investigate the newly arrived Senshi and Gao Wanyi. It can be seen that the people here at zhaoshuyuan.com are not doing well. Is there only this gathering place nearby? Senshi asked. That's not true. It seems that there is also a gathering place by the river, which is about 10 kilometers away from here, and it's also us Earthlings. Chang Feng said, our two gathering places and the fire tribe form an equilateral triangle. But I haven't been there before. He added, because that gathering place is on the other side of the river and we need to cross it, but the river is very dangerous. Senshi suddenly looked at a large number of people gathered around the campfire in front of him, but didn't see any caves or houses. He wondered, are you sleeping on the ground? The people here are all wearing modern clothing, but most of their clothes are already very dirty, obviously there are no clothes to change. It seems that there is a severe shortage of resources here, and we will be busy in the future. Of course not, we all live in trees. It's time for men to come back from hunting and eat. Chang Feng said, by the way, do you have any crop seeds? I can offer a high price to purchase them in exchange for meat. I'm planning to collaborate with some people to cultivate the land, and if you're interested, you can also join in, but I'll have to work hard. No, we won't join, Senshi shook his head. Chang Feng felt a bit regretful and said, during the day, people would set up stalls in the middle of the gathering place, selling food or other miscellaneous things. When you're interested, you can go and see. We're all bartering here, and once both parties agree, we can exchange. It's best not to force buying and selling, otherwise you will be excluded and isolated. Even if there is no unified will, it is too much. Some people are not used to it and meddle in things. Senshi nodded. Chapter 8. Gao Wanyi's Choice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Suddenly, Chang Feng looked serious and said, where there are people, there are rivers and lakes, and there are conflicts. But without absolutely legitimate reasons, killing people here is absolutely not allowed, otherwise they will be expelled. He knew Senshi had a gun, so he spoke out to remind him. People who don't follow the rules are not welcomed anywhere. If people don't offend me, I won't, Senshi said calmly. That's good, I believe you won't be foolish. Chang Feng smiled again and said, those trees without wooden stakes under them are all uninhabited trees. You can choose one yourself, dig a hole in the tree or sleep on the tree trunk. After a pause, he added, although the air here is humid and not easy to cause a fire, if you start a fire, you still need to be careful and sweep away the dead leaves. Otherwise, if you are not careful, everyone will be burned to death. We will be careful, thank you very much, Senshi thanked. Okay, I'll get busy first. You guys hurry up and find a place to sleep. Chang Feng has left. Those people seem to have built houses on trees. Suddenly, Gao Wanyi's beautiful eyes lit up slightly and she said. Senshi also saw simple treehouses built on tree trunks on some giant trees. Suddenly, his heart moved as he wondered if there was any upgrade data for the house he had built himself. Let's also choose a tree, he said inexplicably and impatiently. But just then, a woman walked quickly towards this side and said to Wanyi, "Sisters, are you new here, too? Why don't you build a tree house with me? I don't think you are like male and female friends. You can't live with him, can you?" Sin Shiduan paused. He had subconsciously not thought about this question before. Wanyi is just her own passenger, and the two have known each other for less than a day. It's not that dangerous here anymore, and given the choice, the other person should not be able to cohabit with them anymore. He didn't speak and respected Wanyi's choice. However, for some reason, I felt a bit disappointed in my heart. However, to his surprise, Wanyi refused the woman without hesitation. "Thanks for your kindness, sisters. I live with my brother." "Is he your brother?" "All right, then I'll find someone else." The woman looked at Sin Shi with some suspicion, but she didn't feel very similar either. However, she did not continue to entangle and went to find other partners. Sin Shi looked at Wanyi in surprise. Wanyi lifted her hair behind her ear and smiled, "I'm still waiting for you to take me home. How could I possibly go with someone else? So this is the reason." However, Sin Shi was still very happy and said, "If there is a chance, I will definitely take you home." "Well, let's quickly choose a big tree that is suitable for building a treehouse." As Wanyi spoke, she took the initiative to lead the way and start selecting trees. She is not foolish. After half a day of observation, combined with Chang Feng's words before, she has almost determined that Sin Shi may have some supernatural power. After all, she had seen with her own eyes that a steel needle pistol, which was originally so weak, had a much stronger power in the opponent's hands in a short period of time. At the end, even those ferocious savages can be beaten to death. That is definitely not something that scientific means can achieve. If you don't hold on to such a thick thigh, it's really a brain problem. Although this choice may involve oneself. But there are gains and losses, and this taxi driver doesn't look bad either, but rather a bit handsome. The most important thing is that as a weak woman, in order to survive in this cruel and primitive world, one must seek refuge with a man who is capable of protecting oneself. Sin Shi could naturally guess the general reason why Wanyi chose to continue following her. But that's not important, what's important is the outcome. The two quickly circled around the gathering place to observe the uninhabited trees. Wanyi kept expressing her opinions on the side, but she only gave suggestions and did not make choices, which was quite considerate and reasonable. In the end, Sin Shi found the most desirable giant tree 100 meters away from the gathering place. The campfire in the distance is very big, so the light here is not too dim. It should not be too difficult to build later. Although the diameter of this giant tree is only about 2.5 meters, it can only be considered moderate in this area. Because further away, there are even giant trees with a diameter of 5 meters. But this tree, about 10 meters above the ground, has many trunks that grow together and extend horizontally at a 90-degree angle. The trunks that are pieced together are completely natural balconies. As long as it is slightly processed, it is an excellent treehouse platform. Are you interested in this plant? Let's quickly build it, it's getting late, said Wanyi. It seems like this place is a bit far from the gathering place. The night watchman may not come here, Sin Shi said. However, Wanyi has a different view. I suspect that people on Earth will enter this world one after another, and there will be more and more people here. In the future, this location will definitely be incorporated into the gathering area, and we only need to endure these few days. I hope so, then let's take this one. Sin Shi immediately made a decision. Could you please sweep away the rotten leaves here, Sister Wanyi? Speaking, he took out a steel needle pistol and shot some of the startled poisonous insects. Puff! A thing that looked like a toad but was covered in pus just jumped up when it was pierced by a fleeting steel needle. Puff! A poisonous insect that couldn't recognize what it was jumped up, but the next moment it was shot up in the air, and even spewed poisonous smoke from zhaozhuiyuan.com. The two of them quickly stepped back a distance. After killing the poisonous insect, as long as the steel needle is still there, Xin will retrieve it all and dare not waste it. When the poisonous insects were almost killed, Wanyi used a wooden spear to pick up the decaying leaf layer and clean it out from under the tree. Quickly, the area with a radius of 10 meters around this tree was cleared and became much more open. Let's also raise a bonfire. A bonfire can drive away poisonous insects underground. The soil here is too soft, so there must be more poisonous insects underground. Wanyi suggested, "Do you have a lighter?" "Yes, then let's start a fire, burn it all around and drive away any poisonous insects that may be on the tree. There must be poisonous insects on this century-old giant tree. If they want to live on trees, they must drive away or kill those poisonous insects in advance to avoid capsizing in the sewer. As for whether the giant tree will die, it doesn't matter, as long as it can live. Even if the giant tree is burned to death, it won't rot in a short period of time and can live for a long time." Immediately, the two of them found a pile of dead branches from the pile of decayed leaves that had been swept aside and placed it in the cleared area. Soon, a gas fire broke out under this giant tree, attracting people from afar to come and see. "What's going on over there? Isn't someone planning to build a treehouse over there? So far, you're not dying anymore. Let the night watchman keep an eye on it, don't ignite the surrounding layer of decaying leaves." Many people are puzzled because they gather so many people together just to join the group for warmth, and their living locations are very close. If you run so far to build a treehouse and encounter danger, you'll have to deal with it alone. Others may not have enough time to support you. Chapter 9. Sharp 4. Level Folding Knife. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Pai Li Pa. The raging fire caused the poisonous insects around to burst out one after another, like setting off firecrackers, causing Xin and Wanyi to quickly move away from here. The firelight illuminated the nearby area, dispelling darkness and driving away a large number of poisonous insects. Under the soft black soil visible to the naked eye, a large number of poisonous insects scrambled to climb out and quickly escape. Many who didn't have time to escape were directly burned to death. Under the scorching fire, many poisonous insects also fell from the trees, either directly into the fire and burned to death, or quickly escaped. Xin secretly felt fortunate that he had ignited the fire and roasted it, otherwise he would have climbed the tree directly, fearing that something might happen. There are not many poisonous insects on the giant trees of this primitive forest. "Someone has come over," Wanyi reminded. Xin clearly put away the steel needle pistol. Although deterrence was important, the firearms were a bit eye-catching. "Do you want to live here? Why is the fire so big? Don't burn the withered leaves around, be careful of the fire." At this moment, two men with wooden spears walked towards us, with a slightly unfriendly tone at the beginning. However, after seeing Wanyi, both of them instinctively lowered their tone, but inexplicably felt a bit sour. Such top-notch women are rare even on Earth, let alone in this gathering place. "We will be careful," Xin nodded. "It's better to be careful, it's not good for anyone to start a fire," one person said coldly. The other person looked at Wanyi with some warmth in their eyes and smiled kindly. "Tonight it's my turn to watch the night. My name is Tan Bo, and if a beautiful woman encounters trouble, she can shout loudly." "Thank you," Wanyi politely replied. Tan Bo still wanted to talk to Wanyi, but when he saw that Wanyi was ignoring her and didn't even report her name, he left with resentment. After more than 10 minutes, the poisonous insects finally stopped falling. At this moment, the big fire around the giant tree gradually extinguished. Xin patiently waited for the fire to completely extinguish before allowing Wanyi to continue cleaning under the tree. She then took out her folding knife and went to the tree to climb up and build a treehouse. However, as he was preparing to climb the tree, he suddenly saw that his experience with folding knives was full. Suddenly, his heart moved and he said, "I haven't used this knife since its birth data. It used to be used by Sister Wanyi before. Is it difficult for others to use it, and can it also increase experience? This is really an unexpected surprise." In that case, if given the opportunity, one can ask others to help brush up on their experience. Of course, that will be the future, and now the most important thing is to repair the treehouse. Immediately, he had a thought and upgraded the folding knife. 2 seconds later, the upgrade was completed, and at the moment when the upgrade ended, the words "Sharp +1" flashed over the folding knife. Folding knife LV 2.0/26, non-upgradable, sharpness increased. Since she immediately cut the bark with a folding knife and found that it was indeed sharper. And all of a sudden, the experience of folding knives increased a bit. Suddenly, his heart moved and he continued to cut the bark with a folding knife, preparing to dig out a small staircase. He didn't originally plan to repair the stairs because the amount of work was too large. His initial plan was to build a rope ladder. But if the folding knife can become very sharp, repairing stairs will be much easier. With stairs, going up and down becomes much more convenient. Experience +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 almost every cut adds a bit of experience. In just half a minute, the experience of folding knives was surprisingly full. Since she immediately upgraded again. 2 seconds later, the words "Sharp +1" flashed away on the folding knife. Folding knife LV 3.0/52, non-upgradable, the 3-level folding knife is even sharper, cutting through hard old bark without much effort. Since she quickly swung his knife and directly peeled off the bark in front of him. So, just over a minute later, the experience of folding knives was once again full. He upgraded again. Finally, the folding knife has reached level 4 and reached the current level limit. Folding knife LV 4.0/104, sharp folding knife, cannot be upgraded, for level folding knife, with an additional introduction of sharp folding knife, in parentheses. It is obvious that the quality of folding knives has greatly improved since the beginning. Sure enough, since she used it again to cut trees, it felt like cutting fruits. For a moment, wooden blocks scattered here, giving Gao Wanyi the feeling that he was not cutting trees, but rather cutting fruits. Is it because of that knife? Gao Wanyi was surprised in her heart. She had used that knife before, but had no idea that it was so sharp. It seems that since she's younger brother has a secret, I've made a lot of money. She thought happily in her heart, but couldn't help but think of the words that Yang Yue had said before that she would regret. She must be the one who regrets it. But I don't know if she survived either. The idea flashed through Gao Wanyi's mind, and she continued to work, cleaning up the dead leaves and preparing to thoroughly clean the tree. She and Yang Yue are just colleagues, and because of their personalities, they can't even be considered friends. So she doesn't care much about the possible experiences of the other party. Poo. Under Xinshi's quick swing of the knife, a tree pit, with a depth of 30 centimeters and a height of 2 meters was formed. At such a fast speed, if someone else sees it, they might think it's a ghost. By the way, it's not a problem to walk empty-handed, but if you're holding something, it's not easy to walk anymore. Do you want to keep it a bit deeper? Anyway, the folding blades nowadays are incredibly sharp. Cutting this tough tree trunk at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com is like cutting fruits, and the amount of work involved is not too large. Thinking of this, he immediately continued to deepen internally. Anyway, this tree has a diameter of at least 2.5 meters up to a height of 10 meters and can withstand twists and turns. So next, wooden blocks the size of wash basins were cut off by him and thrown onto the ground. In a short period of time, a handrail staircase with a depth of 60 centimeters and a height of half a meter and a thickness of 10 centimeters appeared. Of course, there is only one step now. And with the armrest, you no longer have to worry about accidentally falling off. Not only did the depth increase, but also the height increased to 2.3 meters. Senshi continued to cut, and for a moment, large wooden blocks were thrown out here at a very fast speed. Those large wooden blocks quickly piled up a small mountain under the tree, leaving Gao Wanyi somewhat dazed. I'm afraid rabbits don't dig holes that fast, do they? Fortunately, this place is a bit far from the gathering place, and the night watchers are also unwilling to get close to it, which is convenient for Senshi's actions. But I believe those who see this staircase after tomorrow may be surprised, right? Those who see this staircase may wonder who was so idle and forced to dig out such a deep staircase. Is this something that a normal person can do? It's better to hunt more prey with that strength. They never knew that creating such a staircase with a sharp enough knife in hand was like playing with it. Senshi is manufacturing spiral stairs. This type of ladder is spiral upwards, so even if the depth of the ladder is as deep as 60 centimeters, there is no need to worry about the giant tree breaking. Chapter 10. Upgraded Tree Houses. You are listening at level.Audio. Underneath the giant tree, Gao Wanyi picked all the withered leaves under the tree to a distance before setting up a bonfire. As for the purpose of this bonfire, while continuing to drive away the poisonous insects, she was also eliminating traces and burning the wooden blocks thrown by Senshi, not wanting anyone to see that these huge blocks had been cut with one knife. Although the raw wood blocks are not easy to ignite, there are many dead branches anyway. Just burn them slowly. Time passes by. After just over an hour, the spiral staircase reached a height of 10 meters and was repaired to the position of horizontally growing branches. This speed is beyond even a rabbit's reach. Because the horizontally growing trunks were not completely squeezed together, Senshi had the spiral staircase pass between two of the trunks. After the spiral staircase was as high as the tree trunk platform, he began to dig inward to dig out a treehouse. Although the main trunk above the steps of the branches is smaller, it still has a diameter of about 2.3 meters. With such a diameter, it is completely possible to dig out a charming treehouse. The most important thing is that from here, 5 or 6 meters up, there are dense forks, and the total height of this tree is less than 20 meters. In this way, the weight above will not be too large. As long as the treehouse is not dug too much, it will not let the giant tree break. Before long, a treehouse with a height of 2.5 meters, a depth of 2 meters, and a width of only 1.5 meters was formed. The door of the treehouse was only left 1 meter wide and 2 meters high by Senshi, making it much more convenient to handle the door panels later. If this treehouse can also generate upgrade data, then there is no need to worry about stability issues. To be on the safe side, it's better to cut off some of the trunk above to reduce the load and prevent the giant tree from breaking. I just need some materials to make doors, windows, and balconies, and those tree trunks are just right. Anyway, the knife is sharp enough, it won't be too troublesome to make. Wanyi, why don't you come up first? I need to chop down some tree trunks to avoid being hit. Senshi said to Gao Wanyi under the tree, taking out his backpack and putting it into the treehouse. Okay, Gao Wanyi nodded and used a wooden spear to lift the wooden blocks and dead leaves further away. She was certain that it wouldn't cause a fire, so she got up and walked up the spiral staircase. Quickly, she arrived at the location of the treehouse and looked at the flat walls that had been dug out inside. She exclaimed, "Senshi's younger brother's hands are so skillful, my sister is blessed." Don't underestimate the small size of the treehouse, Sister Wanyi, Senshi smiled. He didn't explain the matter of the knife, nor did Gao Wanyi ask, and they all tacitly didn't mention it. When Gao Wanyi entered the treehouse, he climbed up the treetops. Considering issues such as sun and rain protection and defense against enemies from the sky, he specifically selected some vertically overlapping branches to cut. These branches are not small, with the largest even reaching 1 meter. In order to prevent breaking the branches below, Senshi chops them section by section and collects the parts he wants. Wow! Bang! I saw pieces of wood falling from above, quickly covering the bottom of the trees. "What are you doing over there? Damn it, do those people over there bring chainsaws?" At the edge of the gathering place 100 meters away, several night watchmen asked in disbelief. However, it was already late at night and it was not necessary. They were too lazy to go and see, as they would know tomorrow anyway. Leaving the gathering place randomly at night is a very dangerous thing. Because the place chosen by She has exceeded the current gathering area and is not within their patrol range. It took almost 2 hours for She to cut down all the vertically overlapping branches. Because he wanted to keep materials for making balconies and door panels, he specifically kept some wood. After flattening all the protrusions that would prick the person, he put in some effort to cut open the thick wood and make it into a board as thick as 20 centimeters. At the branch platform, not all branches are squeezed together. She then made 2 grooves in the gaps between the branches and embedded these thick wooden boards. So, you can walk around freely without worrying about falling. In addition, there is a fence. Perhaps due to mild obsessive-compulsive disorder, after fixing the balcony, she built a fence around the treehouse with thick wooden boards, with a height of about 1.3 meters. The fence was 2 meters away from the treehouse, and the branches under his feet were also flattened by him. The areas with gaps were also embedded with wood by him, ensuring that he would not slip or get stuck in the gaps when walking around. So, coming out of the treehouse is a flat balcony corridor. Excluding the treehouse itself, this balcony corridor is equivalent to a circular aerial corridor with a radius of 2 meters. With the support of thick horizontally growing tree trunks, there is no need to worry about collapse. Because the folding knife is sharp enough, making this type of woodworking too easy, the only difficulty is that the raw wood is too heavy. But these are not big issues. Finally, there is the wooden door. Considering that the treehouse may generate upgrade data, she used wood to make bearings and door lock hinges, connecting the door panels to the treehouse door frame. So, a wooden door that opens outward is formed. Even if the current bearings and door lock hinges are not sturdy enough, it doesn't matter. As long as they can be upgraded, it's not a problem. It is worth mentioning that this door panel is a hole, cut from the largest tree trunk, with a width of 1 meter, a height of 2 meters, and a thickness of 5 centimeters. After completing these tasks, she felt like he was really suffering from OCD. He evaluated the load-bearing capacity of the treehouse and then widened it a bit. He dug out a small window opposite the door for ventilation. He also used door lock hinges to connect this window with a window leaf that had a small hole dug out. This window leaf can be opened upwards and supported by wood to obtain light. I always feel like something's missing. By the way, there's also a door at the entrance and exit of the stairs, so outsiders can't come up casually. Thinking of this, she spent some more time getting a skylight and manhole cover door. This manhole cover door can be locked with a wooden door bolt from above and can only be opened from above. In this way, people coming up from below cannot easily reach the balcony, let alone enter the treehouse, and safety issues are guaranteed. It wasn't until the latter half of the night that the work was finally completed. There should be no problem, that's it. She breathed a sigh of relief and patted the sawdust on his hand. And in that moment, suddenly, he looked up if he felt something. At the top of this tree, a huge amount of data appeared. Treehouse platform LV1.0/100, for a regular treehouse platform, any creature that comes to inhabit this tree can be considered a member of the treehouse platform. Looking for the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com can contribute to the growth of the treehouse platform. Each individual member, with a total stay time, can provide some growth value for the treehouse for every hour they reach, cannot be upgraded, the upgrade data has really been born. Shi's heart was filled with joy. With this upgrade data, you don't have to worry about your treehouse being crushed by the weight of the canopy. When he expanded the interior of the treehouse before, he was also worried that the tree crown would be too heavy and crush the treehouse. But as long as we continue to upgrade, this problem will no longer exist. Suddenly, Xin saw the text in parentheses. Anyone who comes to inhabit this tree can be considered a member of the treehouse platform and contribute to its growth. Xin immediately pondered, can we say that birds come to settle on the canopy of trees? Or can they provide experience for the treehouse as long as they come, whether or not they settle down? This function seems to be okay. Because even though I tried to build the balcony with as much wood as possible, I still used 99 pieces of wood. Adding the giant tree itself, it is 100 parts, and the initial experience requires 100 points, which is 100 growth points. Individual members need to stay for a total of 1 hour to gain some experience. If there is no external experience to gain, he and Gao Wanyi alone need to stay here for at least 5 days to fully gather their experience. If birds and other creatures stay on this tree, it can also increase experience, and the upgrade speed will be greatly improved. Unsigned books cannot be illustrated. After signing, I will show you the treehouse I drew using AI drawing software. In order to extend the new book period, I will fill out the signing contract again this Sunday.